without further ado, we have two short clips on the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. First, CBS Pittsburgh report says Butler SWAT team operator shot Crooks, because that's not part of the title. His shot delayed Trump assassination from happening. So you have the first 8 shots. There's a 9th shot. That's Butler ESU is the official narrative now. That makes it hits his stock of his gun, blows up a little bit, causes Crooks to like lose focus, and then the other sniper team from Hercules 1 on the south building is able to get a line of sight and put an end to it. There is some video to corroborate these claims, which makes it less fishy, but it's still been 6 weeks. Why didn't they tell us this sooner? Let's go to the clips. The second clip comes from The Blaze. Revealed FBI released body of Trump shooter, scrubbed evidence and sanitized everything before investigation could really take place, which is, again, how did Crooks get them to do that? If it's not the deep state precipitating the thing, like who else can like get rid of the body and the evidence so you can't look at it anymore? Even Dealey Plaza was not forensically scrubbed of evidence. Maybe it was a little bit. All right, let's go to these two clips and then we'll be back to change the subject.
Tonight, word that a local sniper likely saved lives at former President Trump's Butler rally last month when his single shot, fired from a football field away, hit the attempted assassin's gun. Good evening. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Ken Rice. That shot is said to have delayed shooter Thomas Crooks just long enough for Secret Service snipers to take a cleaner shot. KDK's Jennifer Barresso has new details from a report just released by congressional investigators. Jen.
Ken, we first reported that this local sniper fired a shot at Thomas Crooks before a Secret Service sniper fired the kill shot. Now, sources tell me now that that Butler SWAT officer, he left his post, he ran into the line of fire, and he shot at Crooks, hitting his gun. Now, the Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins report says that shot was about 100 yards away, and it hit Crooks's rifle stock and fragmented into his face, neck, and right shoulder area from the stock breaking up. Crooks went down, but recovered after just a few seconds and popped back up. Sources close to the attempted assassination tell me they believe this happened and prevented more carnage. Now, Congressman Mike Kelly, he made that report public today. I talked to him about what he's learned in this bipartisan task force that he's in charge of.
I look at that, and so the faith and trust and confidence the American people have to have has been shaken so badly.
Republican Congressman Mike Kelly, a Butler native and chair of the U.S. House Task Force investigating the Trump assassination attempt, was at the rally that day. And a month later, he still has more questions than answers.
Well, the one thing we know, if they can't give you a definitive answer, it's because there was no definitive plan.
2 weeks earlier, Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe Jr. testified before Congress. He put up this picture of the AGR roof, insisting local counter snipers inside a nearby building should have been able to see the shooter, Thomas Crooks, on top.
Looking left, why was the assailant not seen? When we were told that building was going to be covered.
But as KDKA has reported, local law enforcement working the rally say they told the Secret Service they didn't have the manpower to do it.
I was disappointed, first of all, that somebody in that position would go ahead and make this supposition and say, well, here's the problem. The local guys didn't do their job. Law enforcement came in to help out that day, not to take the place of the federal agents that were there.
We've been telling you for weeks, 8 minutes before the shooting, officers saw Crooks moving between buildings at the AGR complex. That information was sent from the county command post to the Secret Service's separate command post.
There's something going on in this building.
At the same time, David Stewart's video shows panicked police and troopers with guns drawn, searching for Crooks while Trump is speaking on the stage. Why do you think they did not take former President Trump off of the stage at that point?
I have absolutely no idea. Who in the world didn't have the common sense to just say, the only target there would be the president, the former president of the United States.
Police couldn't get to Crooks before he fired 8 shots, injuring Trump, David Dutch, Jim Copenhaver, and killing Corey Comparator.
If they were suspicious of somebody being there that shouldn't be there, just keep them back. Corey would be alive today. The other 2 men that were wounded would not be wounded. The president would not have been wounded.
Another part of Higgins' report confirms our own reporting that Butler ESU laid aside radios for the Secret Service to pick up, but that they never picked them up. Now, Congressman Kelly, his task force, they requested documents from several federal agencies on Monday, and they're requesting a briefing to bring everybody up to speed. Reporting live, Jennifer Barrasso, KDKA TV News.
To discuss is Blaze editor-in-chief Matthew Peterson. So Matthew, when we look at this story, it seems pretty significant that we're still learning all of these different details.
Yeah, what's astounding is week after week goes by, most of the mainstream media doesn't pay any attention to what's going on. Of course, they're not really talking about it every day, as they obviously would if the situation was reversed. And what is astounding is every week, every a couple of days, we learn something that's just unbelievable. And, you know, I've seen this happen now since the day of until now. Revelation upon revelation keeps breaking across the land. It's sad.
It is absolutely sad. And let's go ahead and bring in Blaze investigative journalist Steve Baker into this conversation. And Steve, I just want to make sure you heard that question that we were talking about at the top of this segment, when we now have more information that the would-be Trump assassin was stopped when the SWAT team hit his rifle with a bullet. What can you tell us about this and the level of significance with this new revelation?
Well, yeah, it's significant to Joe Hanneman and myself, because one of our sources on the ground that we were hearing from in the very initial hours after the shooting told us that they counted 3 holes in Thomas Crooks. Well, that now makes sense, because if a part of the rifle was destroyed and shrapnel poked him in the face, the neck, that explains what our source actually saw on the grounds. So we're actually very pleased that our sourcing was that accurate that day. And of course, it also answers a lot of questions about why the gun stopped firing so suddenly, and then there was a long pause before that 10th final sniper round that took him out.
And then some of the other news that we're getting today is the body of the would-be assassin has already been cremated, Steve. And Representative Higgins revealed in a preliminary investigation report that the FBI released his body just 10 days after the shooting and scrubbed the crime scene of biological evidence before Higgins could investigate the area. So we see throughout this entire investigation that we've been going through back and forth. Is this malice? Is this incompetence? But either way, this doesn't look good for the FBI. So why would they do this?
It's incomprehensible once again. And, I get so tired of talking about our government and using words like incomprehensible and inexplicable. And especially when you have a professional, a seasoned professional like Clay Higgins. I'm actually sitting in Louisiana right now. That's where he, of course, is from. And he's a legendary sheriff. He knows how to handle investigative scenes, processes, murders, obviously, homicides of all types. And he is very clear that this should never have been done. That body should have never been turned over before multiple agencies had the opportunity to examine, do autopsies, make visual and other types of examinations on the body of Thomas Crooks for the purpose of knowing for sure what we are. Look, all of us, we just want the truth, right? That's it. At the end of the day, we want the truth, whatever it is. But the more and more you cover things up, the more and more you rush things to their conclusion, the less likely it is that we're ever going to close the book on this in a manner that's going to satisfy the American people.
Steve, can you talk a little bit about the back and forth between the federal officials and the locals? I mean, SWAT officer not being called out and praised versus, the feds. There's been a lot of back and forth. And in the beginning, they were putting blame on the locals, right? I mean, what we were hearing from, even people I really like Bongino as well, the local people probably screwed up. And where do we stand when you look at that balance between them, this war?
This was another really important point to one of the sources that we had, was we were told literally within as I said, the opening hours after this event took place, that Crooks was shot from someone on the ground by a SWAT team operative on the ground. We knew that. I kept looking and listening for an 11th shot that would explain the third hole, but now we know with the gun exploding. But this is, to getting to your question, is that with the breakdown between all of the agencies, they're going to point fingers, and somebody humorously said that the United States Secret Service motto now was CYA. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. They are in a definitive mode of covering their malfeasance, covering their incompetence that day, covering their multiple layers of failures. And the easiest thing for them to do is to blame the lowly sheriff's office. But, look, you and I all know that we believe that our sheriffs, for the most part, are our last line of defense here in this country, that they're going to protect us when the federal government finally fails us, ultimately and totally. And so there's a lot of competency in those SWAT, especially the SWAT teams, especially the counter assault teams at these local agencies. Some people say, oh, it's just a small town SWAT team. They don't know what they're doing. No, they have recruited people from our special forces that have had years of very, very high level of training overseas, combat training. These guys know how to move towards the fire, and that's what this particular individual did. And he should be named. He should be called out as a hero because he ran towards the gunfire. And
you'd think, fresh off of this conversation, maybe things would change. But no, the Secret Service reportedly left Donald Trump vulnerable in an attack on Wednesday when a female agent abandoned her post to breastfeed her child during an event in Asheville, North Carolina. And the agency said, hey, you know what? There's going to be no impact on this Trump event. But Steve, we're not even 5 weeks away from the Trump shooting. So how are we now just here at this event happening days after this?
That's a question that can't be answered. I mean, it really can't. I didn't know that the federal government had a bring your infant to work day. And certainly that when somebody is going out to protect the former president of the United States, that they think somehow that that's appropriate to bring their breastfeeding infant to work that day. I don't even know. Have we even asked the question whether this was a breastfeeding woman or I don't even know what. I don't even know.
Fair point. Fair point.
And but that's how absurd all of this is. And when I read this story yesterday, I literally just about popped. With all of the time that I've spent in the last 5 weeks on this assassination attempt and looking at all of the nitty-gritty details and the filings and the reports and talking to the sources, and then we find out that somebody literally was so incompetent that they brought their child and were breastfeeding and then also brought in 2 of their family members who had not been cleared by the Secret Service to be there. That's, again, I said it earlier, it's inexplicable. It's incomprehensible. I can't get away from those words.
I know, it's over and over again. Steve, real quick, last question for you. I want to know what you think the number 1 or 2 next steps in investigating the assassination attempt are. Like, where are the loose threads right now?
I think that the loosest thread and the one that we really want to find out about is we need to learn more about Crooks' prior activities and his prior associations. Now the day in and of itself is coming together because good reports like this coming from Clay Higgins, that helps tie up a lot of loose ends, helps confirm a lot of what we know, and that way we can release that that path and we can go in a new direction and pull a new thread. And so I think at this point that's where we're going to have to start looking, is in doing some geolocation on telephones, associations, things of that nature, and finding out who he was associating with over the 8, 10, 12 months before this event.
I know that you and Joe will continue to do all of the.
It's not suspicious at all that they got rid of the body, that they cremated it, that these investigations that were supposed to go on by protocol and standard operating procedure were not undertaken. It's not suspicious at all. It doesn't make me want to look at all into who is Max Urich and where's he at these days, because there's nothing to see there. The FBI cleans up crime scenes all the time. Like I said, they're just like ServPro. They clean up those dead bodies like it never even happened. Nothing to see there. Literally, there's nothing to see there because they cremated it, and only 10 days. That's a fast government turnaround. Usually if your kid kills somebody or tries to kill somebody in the government and they get whacked, I'm pretty sure the average will be longer than 10 days before they gave it back to the family and got rid of the evidence. What's the, like, in the past, how many times has this happened? And then we would know if this is an outlier that they just cremated the guy's body and deleted all the evidence and already was like dripping the evidence out in a unrealistic, untimely, like this is the 21st century. We should have known everything you just heard in those reports in the first 72 fucking hours after the event. But for some reason that doesn't go on. And for some reason, just like we don't know like how many times in the past have they gotten rid of the body. How many times in the past, Scott, do you think that they have given, they being U.S. Secret Service, given Trump rally protection for Trump? How many times do you think they've had Overwatch or snipers at his rallies in the past?
I assume every single time.
Would you be surprised to know that July 13th, 2024 is the first time that snipers were assigned to the Trump rally?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely, I would be. I mean, I've been to a few, like I've been to 2 Reawaken America tour rallies, one in Oregon, and they had snipers and spotters on the roof up there. They had the Trump, what was it? Eric Trump was there at that one. And, yeah, they were in full force that day. And so, if like Clay Clark can get the freaking sniper team in place, I'm very surprised that Secret Service and or Trump himself has never. That's really crazy, man.
Right? Now, I'm trying to remember where I saw that this past week. And I do know where I saw it. It was in a video by this guy. And if I scroll down, I should be able to find it. No, I'm going to have to go to the playlist. So we'll go to this next block. And then I will find the clip because it is the United States Secret Service interim director who gives that fact that there has been no Overwatch, no Trump's, counter sniper team at those events in the past. But all of a sudden, on the day when these guys are posted, this other guy thinks he can come in and shoot, the president of the United States. Again, the more you find out, the less some of this stuff makes sense. The other, I think it's no longer, like I said, there's nobody in the water tower. I don't think there's anyone in the trees. Like, we've narrowed it down. 8 shots seem to come from where they found Crooks's body. I'm not going to say Crooks shot those things because there's a lot of time left that's unaccounted for on that roof before any camera evidence, anything. And so that's still an open loop right there. But as far as like where the shots came from, where they came from, how they're accounted for, how many other unaccounted for noises are in the tapes, those sort of things, we have less questions on those things, but we are opening a can of whoop ass on how did the deep state get in a position to do this widespread incompetence such that it adds up for this wind-up guy to go and do those things. That's still yet to be explained. At least some of this forensic stuff is being worked out. And now we take you for a short time to the Middle East because I don't know if you've heard, but Lebanon, Iran, a whole bunch of different groups are getting involved. Israel's trying to fight a war like on 7 fronts at the same time. And they're very rah about it. But if you think back to last week, they just got caught raping people on tape and bragging about it and defending it, saying like these are animals, we should rape them. So loss of world public opinion that used to be in their favor is like never coming back. People can't unsee the stuff that they've seen so far. And here's a little juxtaposition of what's going on, how it's going, and what's coming up.
Right now, I'm currently finishing 2 months of operational duty in Gaza. And Gaza is one of really just a beautiful piece of land. It's a beautiful piece of land with clear sand and great beaches, and just all in all, you can turn the place into a Garden of Eden, a beachside, a beachfront, upscale communities. But the Arabs, the Muslims living in Gaza, have chosen to turn the place into a terrorist dump with rats crawling out from every corner of the buildings to shoot RPGs, and with a network of tunnels, bigger than the metro or the subway system in New York. Instead of turning the place into a beautiful area, instead of actually making this the Singapore of the Middle East, they've made this one of the biggest terror areas in such a small piece of land, where all the money has been spent on digging tunnels and creating places or areas to fight against Israel and to plan their next move in attacking Israel. Instead of choosing life, instead of choosing what is good, they have chosen death, and they have chosen what is bad. We all talk about how, as human beings, we all want the same things. We all want what is, to raise a family, to, make some money, to live in a nice house, to educate our kids on certain values, and that's it. That's all we want. But the truth is, it's not true. These people want something very, very different than what we want as Jews, or even other people in the Western world. They're not interested in just simply raising their kids. The whole Gaza, whether it be the terrorists themselves, whether it be the barbarians who came into Israel on October 7th, whether it be the people who clapped and cheered for the terrorists as they brought hostages back, whether it be the people who work for Hamas within Gaza, who look like simple civilians, and a whole network of just basically everyone in Gaza, maybe not 100%, but very, very much more than 10% and much more than 50%. Everywhere in Gaza, there's supporters of Hamas, people who believe in Hamas. This is not something where there's only a few people here and there, but most people are good. This is a people, the Muslims who live in Gaza, they want something else in life, something that is foreign to all of us. And the tragedy is that they have chosen death over life and what is bad as opposed to good. Gaza could be a beautiful place, but they haven't, aside for a small amount of neighborhoods of the rich people of Gaza, people live in poverty, and it's just an absolute dump, and it's too bad. But hopefully in the future, and I believe that reality is much stronger than any ideology of a politician or any pressures that might be applied on politicians, that the situation won't last for too long, and the state of Israel will eventually return to Gaza for good. And when we do, Gaza will become some of the most in-demand real estate in Israel. And when Gush Katif was evacuated, we had 8,000 people in something like 20 communities. We're going to have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people occupying all the beachfront property. We're going to have resorts, and we're going to turn it really into a beautiful place. Right now,
the Israeli military tonight is at its highest state of alert and readiness. The military spokesman saying, "We take the declarations of our enemies seriously." Iran and Hezbollah have vowed to retaliate for the assassinations of a Hezbollah commander in Beirut and a Hamas leader visiting Iran. The administration is expecting it could come in the next few days or sooner.
We have increased our force posture and capabilities in the region, even in just the last few days.
In an unusual move, the Pentagon going public today, revealing a guided missile submarine has been ordered to the region and that it is speeding up the arrival of a second aircraft carrier. It's all to both deter Iran and its allies and react in case this spirals into a regional war. While in Israel, hospital patients are being moved to basements and blood banks are preparing. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Israel is ordering new evacuations, this time in part of a humanitarian zone. Mohammed Al-Rukab, his wife, and 4 daughters are on the move again. We are staying in the streets. We are tired and humiliated, he said. It follows this weekend's attack on a school being used as a shelter. The Hamas-run civil defense and doctors say more than 100 people were killed. Israel says 31 militants were hiding there.
And Richard, there is some disturbing news tonight about some of the hostages still being held by Hamas.
Hamas says that 2 of its guards, and this announcement came tonight, shot and killed, and it suggested that they were acting alone. A male hostage and seriously wounded 2 females. Israel says it's investigating. Lester.
All right, Richard Engel, thank you.
I want to start this video off by posing a question to you guys. Do you think that there are people in our society that are completely above the law? And when I say above the law, I mean absolutely 100% above the law, like where they can do anything that they want and there will never be any repercussions. There's nothing they could plausibly do or get caught for where they will end up in jail. And I want you to seriously think about that before you answer in your own mind. I actually am past the part where I sound angry or indignant. I think that this is just demonstrating to the world exactly what they wanted it to, right? Because I'm going to show you information that puts the Soros family, the Rothschilds family, the Cheneys, the Bushes, right in the center of this thing in a way that is so damning that it's kind of unbelievable. But the first one that I'm going to show you right here, when this Secret Service gentleman is going to tell you a fact that I had not heard until last night, that I don't know, if you feel like you can explain this in any other way other than that's probably the most damning circumstantial evidence that I've ever heard in any case ever, I would love to hear what that explanation would be. And then we're going to get to the meat and bones of this thing that does absolutely connect the people that I just laid out or those groups out to this thing. And here's the reason why I have no concerns about saying this. They want you to know. I am doing what they want. They want you to know. I really mean that. They want you to know. They're definitely not going to face repercussions, and they want you to know that they did this, it's them, and they're not going to face any repercussions because there is an order to the world. This is the way that they see it, in my opinion. They think that there is an order to the world and that they are at the top of that order, and it's important that people understand that because that way people like Donald Trump will not come out and challenge the way that he has. He has just directly stuck a finger in their chest. I'm not sure if he really understood exactly who he was up against when he started, but at this point, they tried to shoot him in the face and tell the entire world they did it, and they wanted you to find out they did it and simultaneously in the same moment find out that their global influence has increased by a factor of hard to calculate. How could you say that those guys could have their global influence increased? You'll see. You'll see. So let's jump right into this thing. Now, before we get started, I have a really quick confession to make. I was actually asked to be a part of this conspiracy by someone at Crack Rock. They were like, look, Ben, do you want to provide a little bit of help, a little bit of air cover after this happens? And I was like, I'm going to ask you a question before I answer. Are you subscribed to my YouTube channel? And they were like, nah, man, we don't really subscribe to YouTube channels. I was like, then no. The answer is no. Because anytime someone asks me something, I just ask, are you subscribed? And if they say yes, then I say yes. And if they say no, then I say no. So if you want to have a permanent yes from me, all you have to do is subscribe. And if you want me to say no to everything, then just don't. I watched Miss C Social's video on this, and if this does not get your spidey sense up to a level beyond where it already was, then you're not like me, because this is a shocking admission.
Can you confirm that this was the first 2024 campaign event that counter sniper teams were assigned to the former president?
It was the first time Secret Service counter snipers were deployed to support the former president's detail.
So since Trump has left office, the Secret Service has never provided counter snipers for Trump. But the first time that they do it since he's left office happens to be the same day Thomas Crooks shows up. Interesting.
Interesting is right. And guess what? There's a lot more to this story coming in this video about Thomas Crooks and the connection to all of this, right? Connected to exactly what I alluded to earlier. But let's just talk really quick about what she just said, okay? Or what the Secret Service just said, which is that they confirmed right there in front of the entire world that they had never once provided counter snipers to the Trump campaign until this event, okay? Now, was anything else going on throughout this event that was a first-time deal? Because I can think of one thing, which was left-wing mainstream media outlets streaming it. Okay. Now, I always found that wildly suspicious. Why would they do that? I remember that the left-wing media had like a total Trump blackout for a long time. Why on earth would they stream or show in any way a live Trump rally? Okay. And believe me, we're going to come back to the counter snipers, but I just want to make this point also. Their entire strategy with him has always been, do not let people see him speak in long form. Take out things in context. Well, I'm sorry, absent context. Put them together so that you can frame it in a way that makes him look bad, right? I'm not saying every single thing that he has said has been great, but certainly the only things that the left-wing media are going to show you are going to make him look bad. And in many cases, they are things that are completely misrepresented. The bloodbath thing, really? The bloodbath thing? He's threatening violence against the population. What are you talking about? He said it's going to be an economic bloodbath because he is going to impose a 100% tariff on automotive imports from Mexico because China is building these enormous car plants that are going to be used to build American cars and then import them from Mexico, which means we're going to lose all the American automotive jobs. So he said, I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm going to impose a 100% tariff on that. Otherwise, if I lose, it's going to be a bloodbath. And they framed that all over the place as if he had made a genuine threat against the population. It's ludicrous. Complete lie. So why on earth would they put him in front of the population in long form and let them see what he's actually saying? Unless, maybe they knew that something was coming, would be what I would be suspicious of. Now, as far as the counter snipers, though, let's think about that for a second, okay? If you think about the way this whole thing played out, right? First, you need to think about what is the way this needs to play out for the high-level conspirators, if that is what's happening, right? They need someone to shoot Trump or appear to shoot Trump, and then they need to get shot in the same moment so that you can tell the world that it's a single lone gunman, which coincidentally is exactly what the FBI did do 24 hours later before they were able to get inside of the shooter's phone and check any of his communications. So we somehow had a guy just waiting to speak to the media to tell them, like, listen, man, this guy is a loner. He's a weirdo. He always was by himself. He wore military fatigues at school. He just didn't have any friends, man. They're all, wait, where'd you find this guy so fast? It's like, he just really wanted to talk, man. He just really wanted to talk. And he did call him a loner over and over. So he's a loner, right? And you're like, all right. So you called him a loner, and the FBI, hey, have you guys gotten into his devices yet? They're like, no, we have not. We cannot get into his device. You're all, okay. So we'll talk about that for a couple of days. And then 3 days later, they're all, now we are in his device. You're all, but did you just say, like, 48 hours ago that you know for sure that he's a lone gunman? Like, you actually said to the media, he acted alone. Like, you said that, right? You said that he acted alone? Yes, we did. Okay. Did you have time to look at any forensic evidence from the scene? A little bit. Because it's been 24 hours. I seem to recall when you guys did an investigation into Russiagate, it took you like 3 years to come up with whether or not there was anything there. There turned out there wasn't, except for evidence that a lot of it had been completely fabricated on purpose. But I'm just saying, it took you guys a really long time to investigate things, and Robert Mueller's the one who did that investigation. He used to run the FBI, so I would assume that the protocols are at least semi-similar given the severity of taking a shot at a former president who is leading in the polls, right? I mean, like, you would probably take more than 24 hours to decide whether or not the guy had done it by himself, because if not, then you going out and saying that to the media is extraordinarily suspect. You know what I mean? And so you're already there, and then you think to yourself, wait, this is the very first time that they had counter snipers? Really? Well, isn't that a shocking coincidence? You know what I mean? So that is unbelievably suspicious. So I imagine everybody's ears perked up, especially when I mentioned George Soros being connected directly to this, because in my opinion, this guy is like Dr. Evil.
Go ahead and pull it.
But this story,
because I too was incredulous, and I already debunked that part. But the part that's not debunked is this part. Butler rally was first Trump event of 2024, meaning in his re-election campaign, all these rallies, they never had counter sniper teams until the day that the magical Mr. Crooks was able to infiltrate all their layers of sophistication and make sure they couldn't fly their drones and make sure that all these things happen. You know, it was the magical Mr. Crooks that put these bets against Rumble and Trump stocks. Now, he's about to tell you that the Rothschilds and Dick Cheney and, you know, a whole bunch of people, BlackRock, own Austin Private Wealth that did the insider trade. So here, let's like disambiguate, because we're about to go to thank yous. We're about to land this show, but I can't let that accusation sully a whole bunch of perfectly good information that doesn't need to be hyperbolized. So let's disambiguate. Prior to the assassination attempt on July 13th, 2024 on Donald J. Trump, Austin Private Wealth placed short sell, they bet against, meaning these things they're betting on are going to fail in some unbeknownst way. They bet on 12 million stocks of Trump and like, I don't know, a whole bunch of million stocks of Rumble. It's all documented. They later said that these stock trades were mistakes. After Trump didn't get assassinated, when they were about to have to pay like $1 billion or whatever, they're like, oh, sorry, it's a clerical error. And the SEC is like, no problem, bro. We do this all the time. We give refunds on people's bad bets. And no, they never do that. So it's highly unusual, highly suspect. Who knows to place those two specific bets, and who is Austin Private Wealth, LLC, et cetera, et cetera. They have holdings that include not the Rothschilds, but I found everyone else that's being accused as owning is something that's just owned in the portfolio of Austin Private Wealth. So the claim that like Soros and these other groups like did that top down is yet to be substantiated. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying from the evidence that exists. And here's what I have for you. Bets against the Rumble stock. You can go to Austin Private Wealth. You can check out their 13F filings. This is the claim made in the article he's citing. However, when you go over and check it out, this is the holdings of Austin Private Wealth. This is not who holds Austin Private Wealth. So the relationship that's being represented in the story is in the reverse. You can see everything they hold. Every company, they have to publish this stuff. So these are gettable records. Couple, speak into your internet search engine of choice. You can find it easy. So there's a bunch of these examples. There's SEC, Edgar filings. There's, here's an example of that. Here's the Edgar search. Let me go back to the browser. It looks like this. You can go into the various documents and you could check around and see all the filings. I have yet to identify who owns Austin Private Wealth to make those trades, or who's on the board that would have the connections to know about the precipitation of those events prior to those events happening, because it is strikingly similar to the events of 10/7, where there was insider trading, betting against certain companies that were adversely affected. It also gives me echoes of 9/11, where 2 weeks prior, put options, very similar to what we're describing here, were placed against Martian McLennan, my former client, and American Airlines, which is what allegedly crashed into my former client to start 9/11 and the war on terror in the first place. Who knew about that? When I traced those trades, they went back to the number 3 guy at the CIA, A.B. Buzzy Krongard, Deutsche Bank, Alex Brown. This is all very well known, and it's published in Mark Gaffney's book, Black 9/11, which you can get on Amazon.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos. They're maybe even doing Q&As. And these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happen. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.